So Hogwarts Legacy teased probably the most anticipated feature during my gameplay session, and we also got official confirmation that there's at least 100 side quests for us to get lost in. In this video we'll talk more about that, content length, new enemy types, secret loot, and a lot more I also learned from my time playing the game. But during my second half with the game, there was this quest I did with Poppy called Fire and Vice, and already learned from her that prior to this mission we have rescued Highwing. For those new here, Highwing is basically the Hippogriff that we get to unlock as a mount eventually in the main story, and in the game's lore she was captured by a gang of poachers before getting rescued by the player, likely the same scene we saw playing in the recent cinematic trailer too. However, that pans out, it looks like Poppy will be one of the first to introduce us and even give us insight into the poacher camps, as she herself grew up in one. So her extensive knowledge of their lifestyle will come in handy throughout more than just one quest, though from the conversation we had with her during this one, we learned that she wants to keep this a secret for now. I can also confirm that after finishing Vice and Fire, the Hippogriff mount also unlocked, and I was able to ride it after the recording session was over, so at least that confirms that by this point we do have it unlocked. And speaking of quests, after finishing this one, I noticed a few more types popping up. There was the main ones marked by a gold outline, which will get you through the main plot. But there's also the bronze outline ones that indicate a class assignments. These are basically optional, but will also provide additional access to new spells and features. And from the art book leak from last week, we also know that the side quests indicated by the silver outline icon are also a thing. Actually, Alan Tew, the game's director, confirmed it took him over 80 hours for 100% completion, and this comes from someone who knows everything about this game, so you can imagine how much it's going to take for a first-time player. Even more so now that we have official confirmation that the game will feature close to 100 side quests alone. Some of the articles I see mentioning this say that side quests can also be played in any order, but I think not all of them unlock at the same time. In my gameplay session, finishing one of the main stories prompted new side missions and class assignments to pop up afterwards that I didn't see before. They also mentioned side quests can affect the main story and vice versa, though in my gameplay session we did not get that far, or at least we did not get to see any of that. But during this quest, we also got a first look at the Animagus enemy type. These are higher level mages from the poacher camp, a lot tougher than the usual grunts, and are also capable of transforming into animals, hence the name Animagus. This one was capable of transforming into a wolf, gaining new attacks as a result, which mostly revolved around leaping and biting at my legs, probably searching for bone or something, but it was still nevertheless quite annoying compared to the normal mage enemies. And judging by the dueling feats, it seems that they are also capable of casting the Reducto spell, but probably only during their human form. In fact, in the wolf form, they lost the shields that they usually get, and also the casting abilities, which kinda also made them a little bit easier. Earlier in the quest though, we got another look at the centaurs, and it seems that they will likely not be our enemies, at least not for now, though they did express dissatisfaction with wizards stepping on their grounds more and more lately. And given their equal disdain for poachers, maybe the fact that we helped them clear out these camps might help us gain some favor with them, maybe even befriend or ally with them later on. Not all creatures are friendly though, and at one point we can see a dog bog preying on an unsuspecting deer before dragging it underwater in a violent way. From our conversation with Poppy, it seems that there is something in the water that makes them a lot more aggressive than the usual. They're also known for loving to eat mandrake plants, so who knows, maybe they might interfere with us when trying to collect these mandrakes, because we do know we need them. Especially in combat, mandrakes can be useful for their loud cries that can stun enemies and may even prove fatal. Now, looking at the poachers, there is one new ability I noticed they use quite a lot, and that's the teleportation spell. They seem to use it both as a way to avoid damage, as you cannot target them anymore once they're gone, or at times to reposition themselves in combat. though if you are quick enough, that should not be too hard to catch up. We also know there's several types of poachers, including the stalker, the more fancy looking ones with the brown coat and beaked mask, the duelists with the top hat and the skull mask. These also feature red shields, so you will need something like a red spell to destroy it, including Incendio. And then there's the trackers, the ones more simple looking. They clearly aren't doing their jobs right in this footage, as I was capable of sneaking right past them, so that's that. Also, one thing I noticed is that my attacks eventually destroyed the bridge connecting the two areas, and it came in handy that I had access to Repairo that I was able to cast to repair that bridge back to its original state. And this is something that we'll get to use a lot in our play sessions once the game comes out. We'll talk more about all the new spell interactions we had from the new previews, but in the meantime I also want to talk about the loot drops. Specifically the ones among the more fancy looking stalkers and duelists, given how these two seem to have higher chances at dropping better loot. And speaking of loot, another thing I noticed is that not all loot drops as unidentified, but rather it might depend on luck or maybe even its source. For example, all the unidentified gear that I got from my gameplay session came from some of these smaller brown chests, including this legendary face item from the camp nearby, but not from the bigger chest later on that only gave me an already identified piece. The same goes with the drops from human enemies, which were exclusively already identified for me, so you could probably equip these right away without having to go back to the room of requirement to see their stats. In the same area, I also noticed quite a lot of Reaping Toadstool caps. One of its uses is in the Barufio Brain Elixir that can grant additional XP from certain activities for about 30 minutes. So who knows, maybe we will get to use them in one way like this. And at one point I also got a leech juice from the ground that's used in creating shrinking potions, though we did not get access to brewing potions in the demo that I could confirm if these exist or not. But I'm guessing they do because the game does have access to a ton of potions. And by the way, on the subject of potions, yes, there is an invisibility potion in the game as I noticed from my gameplay preview, though I'm not sure how this is going to differ from the disillusionment charm that we seem to also have that also grants invisibility, so let me know your opinions down below. But the biggest shocker to me was the tease in the later stages of this mission. So after passing the poachers guarding the area, you get to enter this smaller tent, which actually proves to hide a massive dragon fighting pit called the Horntail Hall. Yeah, that the poachers seem to have been running for quite a while at this point. Also nice to see that there will be a varied selection of dragons, which, yeah, there's definitely different sizes and features of. But moving in one of the lower rooms, on our way to rescue one of these dragons, there was a nag set to hatch that we could grab from one of these smaller cages. This even adds that item right into your inventory upon doing so. So this got me thinking, because there's no way they would tease something like this if it wasn't important. That's because if we inquire Poppy later on about what we should do with the egg, she tells the player that we should hold onto it for now, but not indefinitely, as it would be hard to hide something like this from Professor Weasley. My immediate thought was that we could use maybe the room of requirements to hide and hatch that egg later on, as it seems to be the perfect place to do so with all of the other creatures that we also rescue. Even if Weasley does discover the player, she'll probably help, since we get both the wizard fielding guide and access to the room of requirement because of her in the first place. Not fully expecting the dragon resulting out of this egg to be writable right away, maybe not until much later in the game, not only because it might take a while, but also because it's such an important moment. If that is even possible in the first place, by the way, because this is still just speculation. But there is one thing I am a lot more sure of, and that's the fact that we will somehow befriend or get help from one of these dragons. And the one that immediately comes to mind is the very one we just rescued during Vice and Fire. After looking in the old trailers, everything from its features, horns, and even the wounds on the torso are consistent with the ones in my gameplay footage, so there's definitely a connection here. And not only that, during the last cinematic, our character actually rescues it by making a hole in the tent for the dragon to fly out, something that the dragon seems to appreciate and thus refrains from attacking from that point on. Coupled with the fact that I'm pretty sure that the egg we just got is from this dragon in the first place, I think there's a strong possibility for a dragon companion, however that might end up looking. Totally curious to see your opinions in the comments down below. As always, if you enjoyed this video at any point and want to see more Hogwarts content, then a like on the video would really help a lot. And if you really liked it, also make sure to subscribe and activate that notification bell to get these videos early. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.